Hello and welcome to the Berkcast, the How to Train a Dragon podcast. I'm your host HC and with me is...
Wolf.
And today we have a special guest with us. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Critter from Anti-Hixrid. Um, if you have a Tumblr, if you're like a fan of How to Train a Dragon, you probably already blocked me, but yeah, I run that blog. I created it a couple years ago. So if you're a fan of Hixrid and you have a Tumblr, you probably already know me.
I do. Wolf, do you?
A little bit.
And I just want to say I've seen a few out of it on your blog, so every Mary Cup shipper is a friend of mine because that means I'm not pathetic.
No, America was great.
Married for life. Anyway, before we start pissing people off, let's start. So, to the usual listeners of this podcast, you probably know I go to film school, and we came across a very interesting theory which I'd like to share. So, to make it quick, long ago there's been a researcher called Sigmund Freud. Never heard of them? You heard of him now. He believes that us human beings like, simple stuff, not risky stuff or anything, and that our subconscious attracts us to think about things in a sexual manner. You okay with me so far?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. After him came a guy named Malkan. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He believes that while humans evolve, they go through a phase called the mirror stage, which means a baby sees itself in the mirror for the first time, and for the first time, he sees himself as a being like the people he met. From that, he came to the conclusion that we like to project our personalities onto the characters we see in films. Okay so far?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Now we come to the big one. Let me talk about Laura Mulvey. She is a feminist film theorist, and she combined the two theories I just talked about and said that movies in general are made by men, for men, starring male protagonists, and the female characters in these films are usually passive, non-active, and are only there to look pretty and sexually arouse the male viewers. Now, where am I going with this? Do you think How to Train a Dragon fits the bill on her theory, or, to be more accurate, do you think Astrid fits that theory? Critter, you are the guest, I'll let you start. What are your overall thoughts?
I think that she does, but I think that they were trying to definitely not have her be a damsel in distress or be like a, how do you say, Snow White character. But I think in trying not to do that, I think they accidentally made her into that.
You mean it's a kind of a reverse effect?
Yeah, it's an unintentional. They wanted to be feminist. They wanted her to be a strong female character, but they forgot that they include strong female, but they forgot the character, and in that she's kind of tumbled down out of what they wanted.
Do you have an example, just for starters?
I think her introduction scene, maybe, when she was the fire came and there was Hiccup looked at her in the gaze, male gaze, if you want to go with that.
Yeah, Wolf just mentioned that before recording.
Yeah, earlier. That's exactly what I said too.
I think that the series, I'll let the other people talk because I want to think about it a little bit more.
Okay, Wolf, do you have anything?
Like Critter just said, I would say that the very beginning definitely kind of, I think, yeah, they do use it's a camera technique that's called the male gaze, where it's basically, and Laura Mulvey is, if I'm not mistaken, the person who coined this phrase originally. And basically what it's set up to do, from my understanding, is it's set up to give the viewer basically it's set up to turn the female character that it's done to into it's bleh. It's set up to sexually objectify the female character that it's done to. Now, in the case of the first movie, and generally this camera technique can be done from specifically just for the viewing audience, or it can be done from the male characters, whoever that is, within the movie. It can be done from their perspective. And I would say in the first movie, we do kind of get that male gaze from Hiccup's perspective. One thing you probably do have to make note of, at least in the case of the first movie, Hiccup is a teenager and he is sexually attracted to Astrid, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that per se, though, and also you have to bring in the fact that from my understanding of the male gaze and how it works, generally it's done to sexually objectify the female character, and I don't necessarily think Astrid is sexually objectified. I think it's done to show Hiccup's attraction to her on a physical level. So I would definitely say that while it's there, I don't know if it's the most extreme case in this regard. And
because the thing I also want to start off with this specific moment, that the way they introduce her as Hiccup's crush is she has the fireball in the background, which in all honesty makes her look even more unbelievable. You know what I mean? And I think
it's like something out of like an Abercrombie magazine.
Yeah, and that fireball in the background, and also the fact that the other teens are joining her behind her, giving her like the dominance. I think they kind of did it in order to justify Hiccup's crush on her, because her first design, let's be honest, is not. Let's say it like this: if you compare her to Rapunzel from Tangled, both blondes the same year as How to Train Your Dragon,
they're pretty much edgy versions of each other.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say cartoon characters are hot. I'm not that kind of person, but
I'll say it.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. If you put Astrid and Astrid from How to Train Your Dragon 1 and Rapunzel next to each other, who would most people say is better looking?
Depends on your taste, but Astrid definitely has more skin tight clothes.
Yeah, but
more sexualized.
She doesn't have those big eyes, that innocence that Rapunzel has.
Astrid I think that Astrid does definitely, have big eyes in a DreamWorks film, not compared to Disney, but I think Astrid is probably more sexualized than Rapunzel. If you ask me, that's my opinion.
Okay, no, that's interesting. I'll take note, but from the way I see it, I think like with Rapunzel, they kind of try to market it though, because those Disney princess toys aren't going to sell themselves, so I'm probably thinking of it from that perspective. But in my eyes, I think Astrid is not as sexualized as like other Disney characters or other DreamWorks characters even, at least in the first one. And the reason they have the fireball in the background and the crew behind her is because we need to because you do this and you do that shot of Hiccup looking at her like, and something needs to be there, and it helps, in my opinion. But again, that's how I see it.
I mean, I'm looking at Astrid right now, and I'm gonna look at Rapunzel too in a second. They're side by side for a sec. 1 second. Astrid definitely has a more tomboyish, young, like middle schooler look.
Yeah.
But I think that they're both pretty covered up. Maybe Rapunzel shows a little bit more cleavage, but she's a little bit older, so.
Yeah, but what I was trying to say, Rapunzel has more of this innocence that attracts more attention, I think. in the
Rapunzel,
design.
that would make sense for Rapunzel because she was locked in a tower for all her life while Astrid
Yeah,
wasn't.
that's
She
another
was
thing.
out fighting and.
That's another thing. Give me an example of someone who was locked up in a tower and looks like this. Give me their fashion, their fashion advisor. I want him. Okay, but
Well, Rapunzel, she had was Mother Gothel. And Mother Gothel, we know how she dressed.
point made.
And plus, we know that Rapunzel can create her own clothes. So maybe this is just her personal style, what she likes, and what she kind of took after her quote-unquote mother.
Probably. Okay, but we have this scene specifically. Let's, in terms of the movie in general though, and this theory, I think Astrid is somewhere in the middle. Because, on the one hand, she is, like, until Hiccup starts getting to know dragons more thanks to Toothless, Astrid is the top of the class in the dragon, in the dragon lessons. She's the dominant player there. She's the best student, and everything. So that already.
Well, she's pretty much the only one that takes it seriously.
Yeah. So, but that puts her above every other teen, including the males, like including Snotlout and Toughnut and Fishlegs. Hiccup is not even a. So we have all that, but then and she's also like she's very active. Like when Hiccup is chosen to be the one to kill the dragon, she comes up to him and tells him, "Tell me what's going on. I need to find out what's going on." And when Hiccup is attacked by the dragon, she on her own conscience, she by herself decides, I'm going to help him. When Stuik takes Toothless to find the dragon's nest, she comes to Hiccup, encourages him, and then brings the other teens to help him. So in that sense, she's very active, and I can't say that I agree with Mulvey's theory on that account. But on the other hand, she is still the love interest, which is not necessarily her fault, but still it's something to mention. And another thing, we know she is top of her class in fighting dragons, but kind of like everyone else, this is the lifestyle that she had for herself. This is how she was raised. So you could make the argument that because Hiccup goes against the norm and she doesn't really think for herself, and someone did the thinking for her in terms of that lifestyle. And it also comes through when they come back from the nest the first time after the romantic fight scene, and she suggests going to tell the village about this. Hiccup tells her no, and she's like, okay, we won't do this, I'll follow your lead. So it's very 50-50 on the first movie, in my opinion.
On her changing her mind, I would say that one's a bit more concrete. Again, like I've said in the past, Astrid, at least in the first half of the first movie, you get a very strong sense that she is for the protection of the village. Hands down. That is her priority, that is her purpose for being. That is who and what she is about.
But again, this is how she was
Protection
raised.
of Berk. Oh yeah, I understand that. But what I mean by that is the reason she's willing to change so quickly to accepting the dragons, I feel, is because she sees it as an opportunity. She sees it as something that can be used to better defend and protect the village and Berk. And that's why she's willing.
She was also kind of threatened by Hiccup. She was a little bit threatened by Hiccup.
Yeah. I can see that that's a valid point. I agree. It can be something that it's probably up for interpretation. I think that was the idea. But then when you look at the rest of the franchise, not just movie one, but the show, the sequel, the shorts not so much, because there isn't really a big plot in there. But like in Race to the Edge, I can think about 3 moments on the top of my head that Hiccup rescues Astrid.
I can think of more. I can think of like 10.
Okay, the three.
I think I can actually like. I think I can actually like pull up like a screen cap thing I took up of like it was just like I took like screen caps of like every single moment Astrid fell off Stormfly or was put in danger. I'm gonna find that right now. I'm gonna count it.
Okay,
But yeah,
I'm just saying that on the top of my head I have three, like in Night of the Hunters Part 1, where he rescues her from the sea, and of course the Buffalo episode where she gets sick, and the end of the latest season where Vigo holds the knife against her throat. Those are the three that come to mind. If you have
And those
more...
are like three of the probably major moments, I would say, too. Since these episodes are
those,
very much...
and Blindsided.
Yeah. Since the episodes are very much kind of centered around that specifically. And helping her out.
And there's like a...
What was
there was like one big part in like Dragon. There's like I think it was the second episode in or the first episode in the first season of Race to the Edge where everyone is captured, like all the Dragon Riders are captured by Dagger, but you can only see Astrid, and she's like giving this puppy dog sad face, like, "Oh, someone help me, Hiccup, please."
I don't remember that one. But
you could like only like you could literally only see her. Everybody else was just in the back, like they weren't even in there.
Okay. But again, she does have a lot of episodes where she is a focus and she thinks out for herself. Like Team Astrid is a good example for this. I'll also say Blindsided, where she is blind for most of the episode and yet she's the one who saves the day when you think about it. So again, this is the reason I decided to do this episode. There's a lot of, yeah, you can agree with this, but on the other hand, there's this. So, Wolf, you haven't talked about Race to the Edge yet. What are your thoughts about this in regards to the theory?
As you said, there's definitely some back and forth with it. You can look at it in different ways. I would say, generally, I think you genuinely want the character to be strong throughout. You want the character to be good throughout. And you can take away from that too much if you have her be too much of a damsel in distress, especially after you've set her up as this, this strong, independent character. And I've said in the past, I would like to see more of that side of Astrid, because I think Astrid is tied too much to what Hickstrid is, and I think she's tied too much to Hiccup.
Yeah, we will get to that.
I definitely agree with that.
So I would, so I have said in the past, and I'll still say in the future, and I'll still say now that I would like to see more of Astrid by herself. I think Team Astrid was a good step in that direction, but I would like to see more of that.
Personally, I think Astrid is like a character that needs to work off another. She's not like really a character you can just focus on and just have like that beach be the entire thing. She needs to work off, say, like Snotlout or Fishlegs or Roughnut. I think that's more interesting.
We actually talked about this in the Astrid episode we did a while back. Do you think if Astrid was as she is, if Astrid was the main character of this franchise, would you think she would have been able to hold her own like Hiccup does?
I think that it would have been a lot more interesting if she was the lead, because she has, being the lead, she's allowed, I think, to have more flaws a little bit. I like her anger issues, her like shouting at the gang, her being a bully basically in that episode where her parents almost die, whatever.
Team Astrid.
And
yeah.
I think that's really interesting, and flaws are what make a character, and flaws are what make the story. Being perfect or being, a role model isn't isn't interesting. It's not what makes a character.
Yeah, definitely. That's like part one of rule one of script writing.
Hiccup is definitely, I think he's been like superhero-fied, like Superman. He's like, he can't do anything wrong, basically, pretty much in like the new series. He's pretty much always right a little bit. Not some episodes. Some episodes are like, oh look, you were wrong. But most, he's like, he's the hero.
Interesting. So just to quickly go over the entire thing, what do you think of her in the second movie in regards to the theory? I think the first thing we all noticed and the first thing to bring mention to is that her design, like 5 years older, she looks a lot better than the original Astrid. And by look better, I
She
mean
looks like she's a model. She could be like, she could be walking down Victoria's Secret in that outfit.
I don't
is
know if I'll
like,
say
it just does not
model,
fit.
but I get your point. I know what you mean.
Aged
It's
well.
definitely like fashion.
Definitely aged well.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, you could say the same of all the characters, I would say.
I don't think you could say it for the other characters because she's dressed like she has no dirt on her. She's in these clothes that have nothing, like there's like no roughness to them. While the other characters look like they've grown up and they're still the same person.
Yeah, I think that's really one thing I noticed that in terms of all the character redesigns, Hiccup and Astrid's designs are. You can tell these are the same people, older, but at the same time they went through the most changes.
They've been beautified. They've been beautified. There's actually a interesting article like one of my friends made a little while back. It was about how they've changed. I'll try to find it and post it in chat. But yeah.
Okay, can you link it to me or probably publish it on Tumblr? I would like to read that. That'll be interesting.
Okay.
So,
It's kind of about like how. It's better if you just read it. So yeah, let's just continue.
Okay. So we know in terms of looks she's a bit more eye candy-ish, but regarding her
I'd say
action,
she's 100% eye candy.
I can say that argument. I mean, yeah, I kind of agree. I don't think she's like 100% Barbied, I guess you can say, but she is a lot prettier.
A good 90%.
I would agree. I think they definitely made her look more attractive in the second movie, but I would say the second movie goes out of its way to not pay attention to that, to not focus on that specifically. Like it's never something that we're given specific shots of Astrid being attractive. Like we might have specific shots of Astrid, but they're never her being attractive.
Really
they're her doing something.
Yeah, and it's not a joke like, let's say when they land on Eret's ship, it's not like while Hiccup and her walk through that trap inside the ship's belly, and all the hunters are looking at her like, ooh, you know what I mean. They don't really bring focus to that, but it's there. You see it. But in terms of actions, I think she's a bit more. She's less passive than in the first one. Like, even though she's captured by Drago along with the other riders, she still talks back. She still has that will to fight. So, again, it's kind of
I think she's a little bit more stupider. It's like she's out of practice. Like she leads them right into Drago with Eret, who is aligned to Drago, trusting him 100% pretty much. It did not make any sense. The second movie did not make any sense at all. None of the characters did.
I don't think it's really the fact that they trust him. I think it's more I think it was more of a it's your life.
When they allowed him, they like.
I mostly got it as like they held him hostage, and that's what I got. But hey, interpretation.
Yeah.
Okay, but you were saying you think she was made stupider in order to make Hiccup look better, or just something you noticed?
Well, it's just like she's like people constantly say, I want Astrid to be chief. Astrid should be chief. And then you look at the second movie and you're like, wow, look at all these bad decisions she made that almost cost a lot of people. Like, did cost a lot of people their lives. Cost Stoic his life if you want to go down that route. It's like, I think that these scenes of her being a leader were thrown in to like be like, oh look, she can't really do it because she's not Hiccup. Hiccup's the chief, and I think that's why.
Wolf, what do you think about the second movie in that regard?
To be fair, I think Hiccup makes some bad choices in the second movie as well, and I think that is kind of.
Oh, definitely.
I think that is kind of the point, right? Like, your choices have consequences. Sometimes we screw up, and sometimes people get hurt because we screw up and make the bad decision, the wrong decision. And I think that's a little bit of the point they're going for. But looking at Astrid specifically, I do feel like the second movie tried to make attempts on the first, because I've said in the past, and I'll continue to say, I think the first movie had I think the first half of the first movie had a decent setup tongue-tied. I'm tired a little bit, so I'm going to mess up.
It's okay.
But I think the first half of the first movie, set Astrid up as a fairly interesting character, and I think as it went on, she became more and more because the hero needed to get the girl in the first movie. They kind of changed her character a little bit as the first movie went on, and it did hurt her character for what was there anyways for the first movie. The second movie, I do feel, tried to make some attempts at alleviating that, and the first thing was to not focus on the relationship as much and to give Astrid more independent scenes. Like, the very first scene of the movie is pretty much us seeing Astrid being, the general badass people consider her to be, essentially. People consider her to be this very strong, badass character who's very athletic, very powerful, very strong. And she's definitely doing what, we would expect of her to do in that regard. Is that, now the question I guess you could ask is, did they go far enough, and did they do enough, or did they still mess some stuff up? And I would say, in some regards, as Critter said, Astrid definitely made what I feel would be some poor choices, considering the character I think she's supposed to have. In regards to telling Drago about Berk and about Hiccup, I think that was a poor decision, and it's not a decision I expected to see
That was a horrible decision.
Astrid, of all people, making. And that simply comes from the fact that I believe because she's someone who's for the protection of Berk, for defending Berk and keeping the village and its people safe, that just seems like not something she would decide to do, in my opinion. So,
okay.
Half and half again, maybe?
Yeah.
I'll say half and half in terms of the second movie. I'm leaning more towards no on the theory, because she is active more than other female eye candy characters that I've seen in other movies. But so, it's all in perspective. But
I mean, like, what's her name? Megan Fox was active in Transformers, but that doesn't mean she was bad.
Oh, I mean, she was
active in Transformers.
Transformers is. She had her roles here and there, but I mean, the idea of the male gaze is pretty much in full effect in the Transformers movies. Megan Fox is highly sexualized.
Yeah.
I'm
just saying.
So I don't take this the wrong way, but Astrid and Megan Fox in Transformers is not even the same league, I think.
Yeah, I was just saying, you said that because Astrid was active, it means, so and so. Megan Fox was active.
Yeah, but again, but one, Megan Fox was highly more sexualized, and two, I don't remember her being active. But then again, I don't remember anything about these movies because, except the first one, which I kinda like, the others, bleh. Yeah, I don't like the Transformers movies, but that's another topic for another podcast. But anyway, we did mention Astrid, and yeah, I think the main reason people will look at this theory and Astrid and say, yeah, Astrid fits the bill is because of Hiccup. Because let's be honest here, as much as they can make Astrid a strong character, Hiccup is still the main character of this franchise. Like when you ask people to mention the first character in How to Train Your Dragon besides Toothless, people are going to say Hiccup. And because he is the main character, you kind of expect to see the main character get the main girl, essentially. So yeah,
I think that
go on.
I think that it doesn't really excuse poor writing. I think.
No, I don't say it's excusing. I'm just saying this is the general perspective.
Response. Yeah. I don't know. Continue, yeah.
Okay, so anyway, the main idea when you go to see a movie, we are not How to Train Your Dragon fans right now, okay? We are just a bunch of people going to the movies to enjoy something. We expect to see the nerdy guy get the attractive girl. This is like high school movies are all about that formula. Some people perfected it and some people didn't, but that's not the point. The point is, this formula has been around forever. Like in superheroes, in TV shows, it's always been there. And so we are already going in with this mind that okay, this girl is going to be his girlfriend at the end. So of course we need to show a bit of him saving her in some cases. Or the point I'm trying to make is, before I completely trail off, is that yeah, Hickstrid kind of makes me lean towards supporting this theory regarding Astrid, because again, it's mostly I can count all the times Astrid saved Hiccup on one hand, while Hiccup saving Astrid I need more than one hand to count.
Yeah, definitely.
Does it make Astrid a bad character? No, but yeah,
I guess
you know what I mean.
Could she have been better? I would say yeah. And looking at just the movies, not the shows, specifically looking at the first movie where she was first introduced, yes, Hiccup saves her, but I would say it's also, I would say at the very end of the movie, it's fairly even. Like the two major times we see, Astrid saved is, like the one major time we see Astrid saved is when she's about to be eaten by the Red Death, and then she's falling, and Hiccup saves her that time, and then Astrid also saves Hiccup from the monstrous nightmare in the ring. So,
yeah,
though technically kind of doesn't do that well at it, I suppose. But I guess, is she a terrible character because Hickstrid exists? No. I don't think she is. I don't think Hickstrid makes her worse, but I do think her character was a little bit compromised for the sake of Hickstrid. And I do think...
We talked about this. We kind of talked about that you can talk about Hiccup without mentioning Astrid, but you can't really talk about Astrid without mentioning Hiccup. But then again, it's kind of a problem when... Yeah, but this is kind of a problem when you are the love interest character, because... Let's say it like this. Let's take the Hunger Games, for example. You've both read/saw the Hunger Games, right?
Yeah, I was obsessed with it. My dog named Rue.
Great name. But anyway, can you talk about either Gale or Peeta without mentioning Katniss?
I think I could, a little bit. I haven't read it a lot, but I think I could.
Yeah, I think at the very least, I think you could talk about Peeta. Maybe not, or is it? Yeah.
Not Gale a lot. Yeah. Peeta, yeah.
At least in terms of the movies, maybe. Like if you've only watched the movies, I think you get a fairly good understanding for Peeta and his character.
To be honest, either the books or the movies, I don't like Peeta at all. But maybe that's just me.
I was a Gale fan, 100% Gale.
Yeah, kinda. But it's like, I don't really like love triangles, and that specific one is probably one of my most hated. I like Hunger Games fine for what it is, but that love triangle, man, that love triangle. But you see my point. I don't think if even if you can, I don't see a lot of people talk about Peter without mentioning Katniss. Same as Gale, but Peter has more screen time. So yeah, it's kind of a running thing with love interest. You can talk about the main characters without mentioning them, but you can talk about them without mentioning the main character. So in that sense, it's not necessarily Astrid's fault. It's just the how she's positioned in regards to it.
And, that brings up the question, like, should she have been put in that position, right? Should the writers and directors on the first movie have made her the love interest and made her and wrote the story as the hero has to get the girl at the end? Was that necessary? Should they have done that? You could argue, you could argue in favor for it because.
One quick thing I thought about: Astrid is not in the original How to Train a Dragon books. Not even that Kamikaze. Yeah, but if we go to the first one, Kamikaze is not in that one. Like
No, she's
the
not.
first How to Train a Dragon book is Hiccup is divided of a love interest. So, you know what? Let me ask you this: do you think she was put in that movie specifically to be a love interest?
Yes. I would think so, yeah.
Straightforward, like it.
I
Wolf.
I don't know. I would say in some cases yes, but in others I would say no. Again, like I look at the first half of that movie, and I do see a character who's, at least while she doesn't have a lot of speaking lines, I do see a character that is interesting, and that could be a good character. And I think, again, as I've said before, I think that was compromised in the later half. So a part of me would say, no, I don't think she was put in the first movie just to be a love interest. But I think she ended up becoming that through whatever reason, whatever happened during development or whatever. She ended up becoming that love interest, but I don't think she was originally meant to just be that. I think, there always was, I think Dean DeBlois and Chris Sanders, always intended for them to probably be together at the very end, but I don't think the first movie is where you're supposed to see that potentially.
It was definitely, I think, part of executives meddling, I think. Her character being compromised at the end, executive meddling 100%.
Given...
I think that... Oh, you can go ahead.
Okay, so I kind of have this theory a while back when I was very young that for some reason it seems like DreamWorks always put romance in their movies even though it didn't seem necessary. Like one of the movies that come to mind is Spirit. I don't know, the love interest to me in that movie was just pointless. Like she wasn't bad or anything. I just don't. I never saw the point. So I kind of made me and my friends as kids we would always make that joke that DreamWorks always has to put love interests in their movies, and it's kind of bad because
B movie, come on guys. B movie, let's go.
I haven't seen that one, so.
Oh, a woman and a bee fall in love.
Yeah,
The
I know about that part. I just haven't seen the movie to really to have a full judgment.
Greatest love story of all time.
Yep. Thank you, DreamWorks.
Why is this the second episode of the Berkcast in a row to give me 06 flashbacks? Come on, guys, stop it. Anyway. Back to the...
B movie is love, B movie is life. Yeah, alright, back to it.
Yeah, so back to it. Maybe it was an executive interference. I have no idea, but
I actually have this interesting article. It was written by, do you know the guy who made Ren and Stimpy?
yeah.
He was. I don't know if this is real. Maybe he was just like having like a trip or something. But he wrote this post on his blog about how he went into DreamWorks and he was going to pitch him a movie. And it's really interesting because it gives you a really great insight into how at least at that time, how DreamWorks was functioning with the executives. I think I'll post it in chat so you can read it.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can read it if you want.
I'll read it later. I got the previous one, so...
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, I think maybe that was the idea. Who knows if this was an end game plan for the first one? Probably was, because, you know, the first movie is pretty much closed with no hanging plot points. So maybe she was, maybe she wasn't. I don't know. It's up in the air. It's up for debate at the end of the day. But just to really bring this discussion to another level, do you think the other How to Train Your Dragon female characters fit with that theory?
I would say no. A little bit.
I would.
Rough Nut, definitely not.
Yeah, I mean,
I would
about
also
to
say Rough Nut is a no.
Get to see enough of Rough Nut to really make that call specifically, but I would say what we do see, no, she doesn't. But that's also because Astrid is there. And, you know, maybe you could say that's also technically a bad thing too. Like, you know, is Rough Nut not attractive? You know, is that what you're trying to put off there? Again, you could kind of come at this many different ways and look at it negatively in many different ways. And you could look at it positively in many different ways, I'm sure, too. But looking at Valka, though, is a different story, I would feel. And I would feel that, while she's not sexualized, I would feel a big problem.
She was pretty-fied.
She's
definitely pretty-fied.
For a person who lived with dragons for 20 years, I saw worse.
Yeah. She should be smelling. She should be gross.
Have you seen her armpits at a few points? She is sweating, I'm telling you.
I have to check. I don't know.
At one, I remember. I remember at a few points in the movie, I'm like, man, she's sweating like mad. But yeah, in terms of design, I'm not saying she's a beauty queen or something, but again, for someone who lived with dragons for 20 years and in Viking times, she was lucky. Let's just say this. She could have been looked better, but she could have looked a hell of a lot worse.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like,
I think it just
yeah, you're about to say.
I think when it comes to DreamWorks, marketing is definitely a big thing. Like Disney, I think you couldn't put like, you know, a buff Astrid on the poster. You couldn't put a smelly leading lady. If you want her to be like, you know, a strong female character, you couldn't market that well if she was smelly and gross.
To be fair, that's a little bit of a problem with animation in general. Like, a lot of animated characters look better, like, especially if you look at them in their time period and you think of that time period in particular, a lot of them probably look a lot better than what their time period might give them. Like, even Rapunzel is too clean and too pretty for the time period she's in, maybe. And you could say that for a lot of others too, I feel.
Yeah.
But then you look at the side characters and look exactly the same. Mm-hmm. But then you look at Astrid and you see her and she's like this model and she's like could be, you know, in a magazine. But then you look at the other kids and they look gross. They look like they look like the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we are talking about actually before we forget the looks. What do you think of Heather in that regard? Because I think she even looks quote unquote hotter than Astrid. Again,
It all depends on your taste, man.
Yeah, I always prefer
I
black
think
hair, but yeah, okay. Joke aside, I'm not dragging this joke any longer. But yeah, that's probably up for debate. But yeah, when you really look at these two, these are probably the best looking females in this entire thing.
Yeah, poor Rough Nut. I think Rough Nut's beautiful. I think she's beautiful in like a not copy cutter way, like Heather and Astrid are.
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw someone like post on Tumblr. They were like, "Oh, Heather's the worst because she should be all dirty and her hair is like modern and she should be like gross." And I'm like, "But Astrid is the exact same way. Why are you hating on Heather when Astrid has the exact same problem?"
You know what? Can I ask this question? When was this post made? Because if it was made back in the Riders of Berk or Defenders of Berk era, I would get it because it was still the old Astrid. If it was
This was Race to the Edge.
oh, if it's West to the Edge, then yeah, I'm with you. That that's something. But looks aside, I don't think all of these females are passive by any means. I mean, Valka, aside from Stoic, Valka is she's the first one to actually take on Drago head on one in
Here's
the
a
movie.
You see that brings up an issue that I've seen other people bring up, and I'm going to bring it up here. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I do see where they're coming from. Yes, she's taken Drago on one, but at the same time, as someone who supposedly has dealt with Drago and his associates for a long time by herself, all of a sudden she loses to him when Stoic and Hiccup arrive on the scene, and then she needs their help to eventually end up taking him down. She ends up taking a somewhat more passive role in the second half of the movie, where in the first half where they introduce her, she's very much more active. And
I can see that point of view, but on the other hand, just because she's familiar with Drago doesn't mean she really took him on one before.
And I do agree
I
with
mean,
that.
it's something we don't know. So again, this is up for your own.
There is a early draft. There's an early draft of the opening of How to Train Your Dragon 2 where Valka is trying to free a dragon.
Yeah,
you've probably seen it.
Yeah, it's in the deleted
and I think she gets taken down too, right there. She's not strong. She's like Hiccup. She can't really fight one-on-one until you see Race to the Edge. But I think she had her dragons at least. She didn't have her dragons. It was toe-to-toe, no dragons, just fight. And she lost, which I liked. It was like not every person in the How to Train Your Dragon, not every female is going to be like a ex-Xena.
Yeah.
Somebody write that crossover, please. That will be interesting. But on a serious note, I don't remember the opening scene so much. I know what you're talking about. I just don't remember if she loses in that. Don't necessarily.
The Bewildered Beast comes in. I think they throw a net over her. She's like trying to fight them off, but they throw a net over her, and she gets tangled up. Then the Bewildered Beast, the Beast. I would call it the Beast. The Beast comes
Alpha.
up and then spits water everywhere. Yeah, or ice.
Yeah, and then Hiccup and Astrid come across the place, and yeah, it all connects. But and also I'll say Valka is active in the fact that again you can make the argument that she didn't make the smartest choice, and we talked about this in the last few episodes, but it was an active decision on her part to not go back to Berk because she thought this was what would keep Hiccup and Stoic safe and unharmed. So I guess you can say that's an active part on her behavior.
It's still a crummy choice, but I see where she's coming from. She's still a bad mom to me.
Well, I mean, that's what they're supposed to represent her as. Like, you're not supposed to agree with her on the choice. Like, you're supposed to be able to see it and say, "You're wrong," and I understand. I understand why you made it, but you're wrong. But I think the problem comes from, and I've said this before and I'll continue to say it, I think the problem does come from where that flaw isn't really pointed out enough in the first movie. Even just a simple animation, a little bit of background animation where you see Hiccup be pensive around her and more kind of withdrawn a little bit because again because he realizes her choice was one she willingly made. Seeing something like that I think would have went a long way to helping point out that she is flawed, and I think that's kind of an issue where she is represented as this really strong and independent female character, but she's represented in such a way where it almost comes off that she has very few, if no, flaws, and none of the other characters are willing to address that or recognize that either. And that can be a problem in its own right.
It's basically dance around, yeah. They're like, oh, kind of touched it, but we're not going to go down that route because that's too dark.
At least they are not going in that route yet. We don't really know, but I know what you're coming from.
Yeah.
But to go back to Heather, I think out of all the female characters, she's probably the most active because really, let's look at how many times she essentially double-crossed. Like, she double-crossed the Riders in Riders of Berk. She double-crosses Dagger and Riker and Vigo in Race to the Edge. So I'll add that to her being active. And then when she gets Windcheer and the Riders ask to help her, she doesn't let them. She wants to do this on her own. She doesn't need help. And coming on to the love interest thing, she's willing to sacrifice her relationship with the fish legs, which is going well from what we've seen, in order to find her father with her brother. So she is willing to sacrifice love for what she wants to do. So in that sense, I'll say she's the most active. True, she has moments of being the damsel in distress, but not as much.
Which is fine because they're like in a war zone. You can be damsels in distress at times.
Exactly.
Because you want.
Well, anyone can, yeah.
Yeah, anyone can. And just to really, now that I think about it, Hiccup was the one needed to be rescued a lot of times. Even Tough Nuts, Not Loud, Fish Legs, all of them have been captured at one point or another, either if it's the movies or the show. So they did do a good job with that in this universe, that everyone is able to be captured. Even if someone looks a tiny bit perfect, he or she can still mess up somewhere and get caught.
I think, but with Astrid, whenever time she falls and gets captured, it's like, oh my god, like plot stops. We have to go save Astrid. But with Not Loud, it's like, oh yeah, he's captured. Oh whatever, let's go get him. It's like not a big deal.
This is kind of what the characters are, I think Astrid is a bit more valued in the team than Not Loud, really. But so maybe it's just their self-humor. I don't know.
I think that, well, back to Heather. I think Heather was what the writers wanted to do with Astrid, but the executives kind of stepped in and were like, yeah, you're not doing that with her. She's our leading lady. She has to be this and that. So they pretty much created Heather and did what they wanted with her and Race to the Edge.
And to be honest, I want to bring this up. There was the episode where they both decided to keep Heather's alliance with them from Hiccup and the rest of the writers, for that matter. So that's the two main ladies doing something behind the leading male's back. So
but not Rough Nut. Rough Nut gets left out. Poor Rough Nut.
Yeah. Well, if you tell Rough Nut, you eventually told Tough Nut. You told Tough Nut. Problems.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happens when you only have when you write your character as an idiot.
Yeah. So I think like we said at the beginning, the only way to really sum up this discussion is it's up for debate, and we can have points that supports this theory. We can we can have ideas that go against it, but at the end of the day, it's something I don't know about you guys, but I'm having fun discussing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, definitely.
But now we come to the big leading lady, the one that really needs to be talked about. Macy.
Oh, Macy, 10 out of 10. What a life she
Yeah,
had.
if the theory held some other with the other characters, Macy just throws it out the window. I mean, she doesn't care
She had a
about...
beautiful entrance. She had a beautiful exit. She was just 100% the leading lady.
Yeah.
Where's her what do you call it, Emmy? Where's her Emmy?
Well, it's a spin-off show. I mean, seriously. Okay, but...
Dagger to spin-off show first, then Macy. That's the way we're doing it.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. But, okay, joking aside, what do you think of Mala? Now, I just now remembered that she was a thing.
She was built up to be like this. Well, the entire tribe was built up to be this great, like, ninja, Asian-esque dragon worshiper. And then, like, the fourth season came around, and it's just like, oh, they kind of suck. They don't really do a lot.
I'll give Mala this much. She can catch an arrow with her bare hand. That's good reflexes.
But not what's not loused in front of her. Not what's not loused in front of her. Then she's helpless. Because plot.
I think that was part of the joke. But, oh, you mean the Defenders of the Ring Part 2? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can argue that she wasn't ready for that one, but yeah, I know what
she was looking at it. She was ready for it, but plot is just, oh, if Snotlout gets this, then we can do this. And a lot of the series had lots of like little things where it's like they're only doing this so they can advance the plot. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but they're doing it to advance.
And the characters have the story, not the story serves the characters. That's what you mean, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But can I just say, Snotlout and Mala forever. I thought they were the cutest couple of the season, and then they only lasted an episode, and I was just so disappointed.
You can always ship it in your head.
In my heart, right here.
Yeah. So, any other thing you want to add on this entire discussion?
I think I covered everything I wanted to say. I just want to say that Roughnut should have been the leading lady. She would have been the best, and that's all.
Well...
Roughnut is everything. Astrid, everything that, like... She would have been a more fun character. To me, Hiccup and Astrid are just this... In Race to the Edge, they are just the same. They're the same character. So watching them interact is just like watching a mirror talk to itself. With Roughnut, I think we would have had a lot of interesting
interactions. You just put that image in my head. Can you imagine Hiccup talking to himself in the mirror and making kissy faces at that? That's...
He would kiss the mirror. He would kiss it, and then Soak would walk in. And he'd just be like, all right.
Because that's just the farthest away thing from Hiccup.
As Stoic says himself, Odin, it was rough. It would be rough. I can...
When you're like pretty much... Hiccup was probably like, he was secluded from all the other kids, so he never really had a chance at puberty while he was going through puberty. So he just had to deal with that himself.
Poor kid. Well, anyway, Wolf, you have any closing thoughts?
I would actually disagree a little bit on Astrid and Hiccup being very similar. I would say we've not seen any focus on their differences enough. And I would say they're different. I would just say we've not seen them focus on those differences enough to really make those differences shine out. And that is a problem in and of itself. But overall, I think looking at the idea, like, are these characters sexualized for the purpose of just being sexualized? Are they just there to be eye candy, or are they there to be a bit more than that? I would say they're there to be a bit more than that, though eye candy does play a part of it for some of them in certain situations. They are used in that way. And while that's definitely a detriment and doesn't need to be there and shouldn't be there, I think overall they try to lean more towards the side of they try and lean more towards the side of these being interesting and developed characters. Is it as good as others in in other franchises or in other stories or what have you? No, not necessarily, but I do think there is an effort there, and that's more than you could say for other stuff. So, does that give it a pass? No, not necessarily, but we should praise it when something tries, and we should definitely criticize it when it fails. So, I would say there's definitely an effort here. Is it the best? No, but there's definitely an effort, and I think that deserves to be praised in some regard.
So, in terms of my closing thoughts, I think it can go both ways, and that's part of the fun, talking about it, comparing your opinions, and it can lead to a fun talk. So, you guys do that. If you have any thoughts that you think we missed, please let us know, and well, let's keep this conversation alive, I guess. Anything else?
No, not really.
Okay, so that's been all for this episode of the Berkcast. We hope you enjoyed. Critter, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on, guys. Thanks so much.
We'll be in touch on the next episode, I guess. And so, if the listeners want to find you, where can they find you? That's the time to plug your stuff.
antixhistory.tumblr.com. That's pretty much where I hang out. That's where I post all my art and discussions and whatever.
Okay, and if you want to talk to me, Wolf, or Rush, who is coming back in 2 weeks, you can find us on Twitter. Berkcast is capital B, capital C. On Tumblr, we are Berkcast Team, and you can find us all on the Berk from Vine forums. So until next time, I was HC.
I've been Wolf.
I'm Critter.
And we will see you all next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.